Hard to believe, but we're in the last month of 2022 because definitely it is December 1st on today, Friday, December 1st. And of course, a number of things are going on in the world and around the world. And I'll tell you about a couple of those. And then we'll bring in folks that might be joining in the discussion and seeing what they've got to say about a number of these things that are taking place. For example, the truce in Gaza has expired and combat operations have resumed. So there was an Israeli airstrike on Gaza after that week long truce with Hamas ended. So that is something that is going on. And definitely there's a lot of accusations flying back and forth and all in that space. So it should be interesting to see how this all plays out. And there was a very interesting article in the New York Times that I'll get to in a little bit and get people's reactions to that as well. But definitely in other news, nations are pledging billions to new damage fund at the COP28, and the U.S. is criticized for its small contribution. So it's definitely going on, and there is some skepticism worldwide as to whether we'll ever move away from fossil fuels. So that is something that is going on. Is that UN climate summit is taking place, and of course, global warming and fossil fuel is going to be part of the discussions. Then, if we're coming back to the wars of the world, then definitely Ukraine has blown up two railway connections between Russia and China. So that is something that is going on, and definitely that took place recently as they set off that explosive in the Russia-China railroad. So definitely, I guess, cutting off some of those supplies that might be coming in from China and all along those lines. So that is something else that I saw in the news. And while there are some folks that are fans of Mr. Kissinger's, and there are others that are not as much of fans. We know that on yesterday's show, Sasha was talking about some of the reasons that he did not admire Mr. Kissinger and all along those lines. But the Yankees, the sports team, remember Henry Kissinger as a lifelong friend in a tribute statement that they gave, while others are saying that he was a war criminal responsible for millions of deaths. So definitely there is some folks that are looking at both the good and the bad within Mr. Kissinger's 100-year life and all in that space. So it'd be interesting to see if folks have other things to say about that as well. And the truce in Gaza has, like I said, it endured another day until today, and then the truce is over, and now the war is going back as fighting has resumed. And there's even conversations around a block TikTok ban in that part of the world as well. So I've got to learn more about that and see what that's all about and all along those lines. And apparently, a book publishing mistake has reignited the United Kingdom's royal racism fur. So definitely there are people that are talking about that, and definitely a lot of folks are looking at this and all in that space. So definitely there are even some royal insiders that saying that King Charles and Kate Middleton are not the royal racists in question. So apparently, there's a book that is looking at some of the race issues within the UK as well. And I have to see what this book is all about and what the book is actually saying. And who knows, maybe we'll find the authors and bring them to Pod TV. There's no telling what I might be able to do in those spaces and all along those lines. If I come back to the Hamas Israel war. Apparently, the Hamas terrorists opened fire at a bus stop near Jerusalem, leaving 3 dead and 11 injured. And that is something that took place. And apparently, one of the attack victims was named as a rabbinical judge, Elmalek Wasserman. So definitely that looks like a case that could be going on as well. You know, there's all these wars going on in the world, and apparently there might be a new one, and this one might be in our backyard. So it'll be interesting to see what folks have to say about this, since this could be involving oil and all in that space. So Venezuela is the vote on oil rich region controlled by Guyana. So the International Court of Justice has delivered an order in the case Guyana versus Venezuela. And apparently, Maduro, the leader of that particular country, is going to put it to a vote on Sunday as to whether Venezuela should invade its oil rich neighbor. So that might be something going on right in our backyard. And it'll be interesting to see what happens in that part of the world and in that particular case, as that would be one literally in our backyard. And I know that even Nick has talked about Venezuela and some of its leadership and all in that space. And apparently, there are folks that are praising Qatar for their assertive diplomacy and what they did in terms of the break in the Gaza war, and definitely. But now they're also coming out and saying that the Israeli bombings are complicating efforts to return to truce and all in that space. But definitely, it looks like there are mediators, including some from Qatar, that are pushing to renew the truce and all in that space. So definitely, as the truce ends, Herzog Qatari Amar is seen in the first public meeting of country leaders. So definitely, that is something that's going on. And apparently, the Israeli president is visiting the UAE, the United Arab Emirates, and asking for help to free hostages. So it does look like there's some conversations going on in that part of the world as well. And Blinken is urging Israel to comply with international law and spare civilians in the war against Gaza and all in that space. And Russia is saying is advancing on all fronts in Ukraine. I just mentioned what was going on with the bombing of the railway, and I've also heard that, as was the case last year, that winter could be impacting the war as well. So definitely that'll be something interesting to see in that space. And speaking of the UAE, apparently the UAE seeks to silence its critics with a $30 billion climate fund pledge. So they're saying that they're going to help the poor countries with that amount of money and all in that space. So they are saying that they will be doing that. And apparently the United Arab Bank is launching its first green sustainable finance products ahead of COP28. And definitely that is something that is going on. And even though Steve's not here, but I think Shaquille might have some Indian background as well. The India exit polls are showing that Modi is set to win the key states in a tight race. So that is something that is going on. So it looks like maybe Mr. Modi will be staying in power in that part of the world and all along those lines. And Hungary will not agree to starting EU membership talks with Ukraine, a minister says in that part of the world. So Hungary's Orban says that the EU should first sign strategic partnership accord with Ukraine. So there's definitely some conversations about that as well. Get to some U.S. news, and we'll do that shortly. That was a lot of world information, particularly around the war and all in that space. But one of the things that I was curious about, and this is one that I will bring up to folks and see what their thoughts are. I know that I've got Shaquille here. I've got definitely Nick Palveda, and there are a number of other ones that might be joining us also as we continue these conversations and all along those lines. So definitely it'll be interesting to see what people's reactions are to a number of the news stories that are out there and all in that space. So I'll bring up Nick Palveda and Shaquille Latimer. I don't see anybody else in the house as of yet. One of the articles that I did not get to, and I'd love to hear maybe your thoughts, Shaquille, and actually Sasha's here. So I'm sure Sasha will have some thoughts about it as well. So Sasha's here from Canada and definitely has some Ukraine background. But one of the articles that I saw that was quite interesting, and it comes down to military intelligence. And I did not get to that story yet, but even though everybody on this network and a lot of people around the world have said that that was one of the most atrocious attacks that they have ever seen and everything along those lines, the New York Times is reporting that apparently Israel knew about the attack a year ago and all in that space. So they are definitely, I guess, laying some of the blame on Israel, because we know that definitely people get intelligence reports, and apparently they knew that a attack was going to take place almost a year ago in 2022. So I was just wondering if folks had read that article, they had any thoughts about that article, and if that article is true. And I'm not saying it's true because I haven't read the article or seen the proof yet, but if it is true, does that then give culpability to Israel as well if they knew that the attack was taking place a year before it took place?
So the amount of blame that gets put on Israel and the Jewish community, both in Israel and around the world. I don't know. Are the Palestinians aware when Israel's going to go in and do one of their, genocidal, acts? I mean, come on now. There's 15 million Jewish people around the world. Let's give this a rest. Whatever the issue is between Israel and Palestine. I've said this on previous shows. I don't know what the solution is. I have no idea. 2-state solution, 1-state solution. I don't know. but why the political left in the West wants to jump behind Palestine as if they are somehow experts on this issue. None of us are experts on this issue. So, like, give it a rest. And I said a couple of weeks ago in relation to this ceasefire, I don't get it, actually. I actually don't understand the whole ceasefire. So, okay, I've got God on my side. I've kidnapped a whole heap of Jewish people, and who cares about them? I've kidnapped them, and I'm going to stand my ground here. Yeah. Now I'm going to have a ceasefire with Israel for a few days or for a week, and you guys bring supplies, and I'm going to let go all of the hostages. Don't attack me just for a few days. Don't attack me. But as soon as I've given up the hostages, yes, please start attacking me again. Am I missing something?
Like I said earlier, that I don't know all the details of the article and everything, but I do know that sometimes people get intelligence and they are supposedly supposed to act on the intelligence, according to friends of mine that were in the military and everything. Like I said, I did not serve in the military, so I'm only going by what I know of military operations.
Let me just make sure that I understand the theory, though, right? So Israel was aware a year ago that they were going to be attacked.
That they might be attacked, and they might not.
All right. Well, we'll
okay.
Just go
by the
there.
way, I'm going to give you some information.
Let me ask my question.
Was there exact date of that?
Let me ask my question.
No, that's the garbage.
Nick, let me ask my question. Let me ask my question. So Israel was aware a year ago that they were going to get attacked, right? But they're the only ones that were aware of it. Very, very close ally to America, but they never told America about this. No other country was aware of it. Only Israel knew that they were going to be attacked. And Israel said that Benjamin Netanyahu said, oh, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll let ourselves get attacked. We'll let this horrible atrocity occur. And then America's going to give us heaps of money and we'll become more powerful. And then we'll be able to annihilate the Palestinians. Something that we've never tried to do before, but we'll do it this time. Is this the theory? Like, what's the theory here? I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just curious. What's the theory behind Israel?
A little correction. If you look at the official list of help of U.S. to foreign countries in the Near East, and you look at help to Israel, there is no money been flowing from U.S. to Israel in the last several years. The weapons, yes, the weapons were continued to get, but in very reasonable quantities, not much exceeding any help to some other Near East countries, but no money for the last several years. So it's almost like you can go to nightclubs to perform a comedy act, saying that Israel was, of course, they knew that the attack will be exactly on October 7th, not 2023, at 6:30 in the morning. So Israel's okay, now 6 in the morning, in half an hour attack starts. So what Israel does? Nothing. They're just have some holidays or so on. Now, if you look at the last several days, I was watching Israeli channel, which it's in my area, it's 852. Actually, very few people know about it. It's a paid channel, but now since this October 7th, it's free of charge. So you can watch it in English, and very good interviews with top people, and very deep thoughts about everything what's happening. So what they're saying is that there is an evidence that Hamas people wanted to reach a place called Dimona. In Dimona, there is the nuclear energy development center in Israel, and apparently that's where they build their nuclear weapons, and the research and development, everything is there. And only heroic action of people in this kibbutzim that were fighting to death. There were girls who were They didn't even wait for commands to fight with Hamas people. They themselves, without waiting for any commands, they assume fight, and a lot of them were killed because these attackers, they have heavy machine guns and grenades and so on, and these people most of them had guns and a small amount of
Well, I'll just say I stand by what I said before. I mean, the sort of aggression or negativity which has been pushed against the Jewish community, I don't get it. I don't understand. If you're Palestinian, I understand. If you're if you're Rashid Tlaib, yeah, I get it, right? You're Palestinian, fair enough, right? Whether you're right or wrong, if you're Palestinian, you're gonna argue that everything that's happened is fine. I get that. But for the rest of the world, and for people that really don't know very much about it, I don't understand it. I feel as though we're being lied to about the ceasefire. I don't understand the whole notion of that. But the bottom line is, I think this issue, whether it be a one-state solution, a two-state solution, a 500-state solution, the issue is going to be resolved, unfortunately, not between Israel and Palestine, but between the West and the Middle East. And whatever that solution is, it has to be something that everybody can live with and everyone's going to be happy with. And what we have seen, unfortunately, is so much meddling and so many people that are getting passionate about things that they don't understand, that they don't get. And it doesn't make sense to me. And I think that people...
Well, like I said, there are people that have... Shaquille, there are people that have...
Mark, I think people need to take a pause. And I think people need to just take some time to understand that they don't understand all the issues. And I also just want to make one comment that Lee is sitting on the wrong side of the car and driving on the wrong side of the road. You Americans have no idea.
Well, like I said, I figured you would get on that, and maybe we'll get into a conversation about the wrong side of the car and all in that space with Lee and see what Lee's got to.
Shaquille, it's okay, because so is there.
Hold a second, Lee. There are a number of people that
I'm in good company.
Get involved in a number of issues that they may not understand, and all along those spaces. I've said before that I know a lot of kids that are wandering around, and maybe not as much now as they used to, but they used to wander around with Che Guevara shirts just because they thought it was...
Sorry, my reception is a little sketchy now. I'm going to wait till it comes in clear.
No problem, because they thought it was a cool thing to do, and all along those lines. So that's actually thinking of Che Guevara, and just to make a slight pivot and everything, but definitely we'll come back to Ukraine as well, and to the whole situation in Israel. Hold on one second. Hold on a second, Shaquille.
No, hold up. Where is there a slight pivot here? Okay.
Huh?
If you're going to go out there and say, look, I really, I've grown up and I really think that socialism is a great idea. I really love the idea that government is going to dictate every aspect of my life and that I will have no say in what I'm going to do with my life. Now, I personally don't understand that notion, but you know what? If that's what you're going to go with, fair enough, right? I don't understand S&M either. Everyone's reading, 50 Shades of Grey. I don't understand why anybody would want to subject themselves to the whims and fancy of another person. But you know what? If that turns you on, you go for it. But there's a massive difference between that and supporting or not calling out some of the most horrendous things that we've seen in modern human history. And what happened to the Jewish people in Germany is horrific. And whilst it pales in comparison to what just happened in Israel, this is an extension of that same anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish hatred. And look, I know people, as you know, I come from a Muslim family. I know people that actually say that Palestine should have more sovereignty over some of the land that's there. Now, whether you agree with them or don't agree with them is besides the point. But I know of nobody who condones what happened on October 7.
No,
I know people that dislike Jewish people for taking over, in their words, taking over the media and taking over the banking sector and all these other things. But even amongst those people, I know of nobody who would advocate for the violence and the what we're seeing today.
And
The
like you said,
idea that
but
a child,
Shaquille, I
a
agree with
child
you.
will be
Shaquille, I
told
agree with you
not
with
to
what
go
you're
to
saying.
school, not
Most
to
of the
wear
people
their
I
school
know that
uniform.
are even pro-Palestine, I have family members that are pro-Palestine and everything. And as I've said on this show, and I'll say it again, I definitely think it was an atrocious act, probably the most atrocious act that has ever taken place in society and all along those lines. But there
Also,
are some people that would argue, hold on a second, Shaquille, there are some people that would argue that they also, because I've heard this in my social circles as well, that they find it slightly ironic that one of the groups that is known and is historically known as being the victims of the worst Holocaust in the world are now in their mind, and I didn't say that I necessarily agree with them, launching what they consider to be another genocide on another people and everything. So I've heard that in some of my
this is
circles, and I'm not saying that
this
this
is
is a correct perception,
Mark,
but that
Mark,
is a perception that's
this
out there.
is Mark. First of all, it's a ridiculous argument, but secondly, even if, let's just say, even if you truly believe that, that still doesn't justify that in our countries, in wealthy Western countries where we believe that everybody should be treated equally, where we believe in freedoms, that, 6, 7, 8-year-old kids are being told not to wear their school uniforms or not to go at school at all because they're going to be targets of attacks. That is not acceptable. Okay? The idea that you shouldn't go to a synagogue because you might be subject to an attack, that is not acceptable. If you want to make a claim that what's happening in Israel is not acceptable in relation to its dealings with Palestine or any other group, okay, you can go through the appropriate political channels. But to attack innocents living in the West when you are living in the West and you've never been there and you know nothing about it, it's a disgrace.
Like I said,
And I'll just say this. As somebody who comes from a Muslim family that has a Muslim name, September 11, the aftermath of September 11, it was pretty horrible, actually. It was pretty horrible to kind of go through the world going, well, like, hey, I'm Australian. Are you Muslim? Yeah, sort of, It was a pretty horrible experience. I have nothing at all to do with what Saddam Hussein was doing in Iraq. I have nothing at all to do with what Osama bin Laden did. I know nothing about this. I'm not responsible for any of this. I'm certainly not responsible for it because my parents and grandparents and great-grandparents believed in the same religion. I should never be attacked for what happened. And I'm going to say the same thing today. I think it takes people to actually stand up for other people. And there is no Jewish child or Jewish person that's just trying to live their lives in the West that should be held responsible for what you consider to be the bad actions of Israel today.
But
now, I don't believe that Israel has done something wrong here. I think that Israel is acting perfectly appropriately in this specific circumstance. But if you're going to talk about Israel over the last 50 years or 100 years or whatever, look, that's fine. We can have that debate. But the idea that you are going to attack and vilify children, you're going to attack and vilify Jewish families, it's not acceptable. It's just not.
Shaquille, I don't think anybody here or any place else has said that it was acceptable and everything. Just like I don't think anybody here necessarily thinks that Islamophobia is acceptable either and everything. You can laugh, but I've never heard.
We just had a protest out the front of Sydney Opera House, one of the most iconic buildings in the world, just after the October 7 attacks, saying, "Kill the Jews, F the Jews, gas the Jews." Yeah. And the police did nothing about it. Have you seen what's happened in London in the last couple of days where the police are doing nothing about it? Have you seen this sort of absolute vilification and hatred and disgusting action towards the Jews? If this was blacks, if these were blacks and not Jews, right, the media would be up in arms about it. If this was some other minority, the media would be up in arms about it. Everybody would say this is totally unacceptable. But for some reason, when it happens to the Jews, oh, who cares? Who cares about the Jews? Fuck them. Well, let me tell you something. I know of very few Jewish people. The majority of the Jewish people that I know live in North America. Some Jewish people like Sasha, I didn't even know he was Jewish. I had no idea that Sasha was Jewish. I didn't care. When we met, when we met in Canada, we went out. We had a great time. He gave me this amazing bottle of vodka that we enjoyed. I don't care what his beliefs are versus mine. Okay, I would never attack his kids or his grandkids or whatever. That's ridiculous. But yet today, the so-called progressive left are more than happy to attack Sasha and his family. But if it was a black, if it was an Indian, if it was some other sort of minority, oh no, that's okay. The same thing with religion. Okay, if it's the Catholics in America, you kind of won't touch them too badly because it's a big group. If it's the Pentecostals or the Baptists, you won't touch them because it's a big group. But heaven forbid that it might be a Mormon, or it might be a Jehovah's Witness, or it might be a Scientologist, or it might be somebody with a different small view, minority view of the Christian religion. Bang! You go and attack.
Shaquille,
You already provided answers to that. Hold on, please. Shaquille, you already provided yourself an answer about 10, 15 minutes ago when you mentioned that Jews are perceived to control media, the television market, the advertising market,
that's not my view,
financial markets, and everything else, right?
That's not my view, Sasha. Just to be clear, that's not my view.
No.
The criticism.
You just expressed it's not maybe your opinion, but it's perception in a world that they do control. Okay, now there is something interesting is, do Palestinian people control the financial markets or advertising market or media market or just anything? Of course not. Do other minorities control anything? No. So it's Jews who control everything. They have to be attacked. And that's what exactly happened in the world. It's so easy to have anti-Semitic point of view because Jews indeed excelled in business, in finances. It goes back to history 500 years ago with great families like Rothschild or so on. And this is, well, remember, people, do you understand? The major book of Judeo-Christian civilization is the Torah. This is what Jews are reading every day for 365 or 66 years a year, or 6 days a year. And not only Jews like grown-ups or so on. It starts from the childhood. When they're 2 years old, 3 years old, they're already learning how to read Torah, and they're going through all Torah during the year, and the next year it starts all over again. So very early in life, they learned how to read, the meaning of Torah and all events there and so on. And that gives them very healthy a head start in life, because they already, by the time they go to school, say 7 years old or so on, they are already far ahead of many of the
I'll take nothing away from the Jewish people. One second, Mark. Let me just respond to Sasha. I'll take nothing against Jewish people. I think their education of their children, the family dynamics, the family orientation of the Jewish people is fantastic. Now, look, I'm not Jewish. I'm never going to be Jewish, but I think that there's a lot to be said for that community. And the criticism that they're in media, they've taken over the banks, they've done all these things, is actually, when you scratch the surface, isn't actually true, right? I'm a banker, right? So I go around, obviously, Australian banks, New Zealand banks, the UK, Canary Wharf all the time. I go into Switzerland, Germany, where I actually thought there would be a very, very strong Jewish community in that banking sector. Very few, actually, very, very few. That might be because of the World War. It might be because of other reasons. Go to Dubai, very few Jewish people. Singapore. It said, I can go around the world and talk about the banking sector. where you see a little bit of disproportionate representation of the Jewish people in banks is in some, not all, but in some banks in North America. But that would make sense considering that half of the Jewish population of the world lives in the United States, right? So, of course, they're going to congregate around New York and LA and all those other areas.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying,
So,
but
the idea that this group of people are going to be attacked as somehow being the parasites of society, I'm not buying it. I'm not wearing it.
Well, like I said, nobody lets you kill.
Even if I did buy it, I still would not ever condone, and I will rail against the idea that you would attack children going to school, that children in the United States or Australia or the UK or anywhere else in the West can't go to school, are being told by police chiefs and police commissioners, don't go to school, don't wear your school uniform. Not, we'll protect you, this is horrifying. No, don't go to school, it's best you stay at home. That is absolutely unacceptable in our society. I don't know why anybody would argue against that point.
Like, nobody's arguing against that point and everything, but Shaquille, one of the things that I've heard it said and everything, and I agree with it on some impact, and it's kind of what y'all are alluding to and everything, and I've said it several times before on this show. I'll say it several times if I've got to get red in the face or whatever. But there is, just like the African-American population is not monolithic, the Jewish population is not monolithic. There are people in the Jewish population that are ultra-conservatives. There are people that are ultra-liberals. I've told y'all before, and I'll say it again. Might as well call her my step. Hold on a second, Shaquille. You might as well call her my. Hold on a second. You might well call her my stepmother because she's been with my dad for 25 years. She's Jewish American, and she's a leader in the educational field. So Linda Bellins, I would consider one of those that is more liberal and all in that space. I mean, she was my dad and everything, but definitely she is not the biggest fan of some of the things that the Israeli government has done, but she is also very, as best I can tell, proud of her faith, as is her son and her daughter and everything. As a matter of fact, I think Jatovi might know both Leah Sopsey and Adam Sopsey, who are some of her kids and all in that space and everything. They're in a similar age.
Sorry, Mark, can I just clarify what you're saying? So you have a Jewish stepmother, basically, and you're not sure, and neither is she sure whether Israel's action in the Palestine is acceptable or not. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm just saying that in the conversation I had with Thanksgiving, I have not talked directly to this particular individual, but I do know that she has some concerns about the actions of Netanyahu and some of the things that he has done. She would never condone what happened on October 7th.
I've got concerns about Joe Biden. I've got concerns about Donald Trump. That doesn't mean that I'm anti-American.
And I never said she was anti-American. I just said she leads the education institution here that is very American-based. She's one of the founders, one of the people that's involved in KIPP.
But you said she has concerns. She has concerns about Israel. What, in general? Or you have concerns about the government in Israel? Or you have concerns about Israel
and everything, about the government of Israel and the way that Israel is handling things in that space. So you can have concerns and still be.
That's fine. That's fine. Look, let's go down that path, right? By the way, because we're obviously going to get stuck on this, I'm just going to say I haven't seen the show from yesterday, Sasha, so I'm not sure what you said, but just based on Mark's intro, I happen to think that Henry Kissinger is one of the greatest statesmen in American history. And I'm not sure what your disagreement with him is. I haven't seen the show, but whatever it is, I'm probably going to disagree with you, just so you know. Mark, if there is some issue with what Israel's response has been to what's happened in Gaza, okay, that's cool. Look, I'm an open person. I'm happy to listen to other viewpoints. Can you please tell me what Israel should have done? Like, what should look,
I think Kim brought up the idea earlier, and I think even Jatovian has brought it up earlier, is that if you have a set target that you're going after, if you know that people have done a certain crime, you go after said target. You don't go after willy-nilly, and that's what some of the people, including some of those that are protesting, are feeling, that it is a willy-nilly type attack if you're a bombing folks and you don't know necessarily.
I love it, because we've got a bunch of Americans that know absolutely nothing about this conflict. Oh, you're going to do it this way. You're going to do it that way. And then you go, well, hang on, America. Hey, like when similar sorts of events like September 11 happened to you, did you do it that way? Oh no, we didn't do it that way. In fact, we called the whole world. And in fact, our president actually said, "You're either with us or you're against us," threatening the whole world. But if Israel does it, if the Jews do it, oh no, they can't do it. Oh no, we're going to sit here and we're going to say something
You've
about
had your say. Let's hear what Toby's got to say.
So there are a few things here. There are a few things here. First off, Sasha, yes,
I'll be right back,
you can talk about. You actually brought in a whole bunch of anti-Semitic things that are out there. When you talked about, the Jews run the media, that is untrue. And then you keep putting up that was the whole anti-Semitic stuff that you put out there. Then on top of that, you tried to say that the Jewish people, they teach their kids every society does that. From different religions, different belief systems, everything else. So it's not different.
Kids
how to you wanted me to answer, but you're going to try and talk over. It's okay. You can be in the Hawaiian shirt. You can be in everything you want to. Why not go ahead backstage just where you were before, so you can actually listen and learn something?
Backstage.
So again, here we go. Sasha, just as you pointed out, just as you tried to say that the Jewish individuals do all this, again, that's stating that only this group does this. It's untrue. All societies do that. Every religion does that. From being, if you become Muslim, and these are things that you learn as you grow up. These are practices that you do. So every religion does that. So you cannot say that it's just isolated to the Jewish community. That's one thing we want to get out of the way. So then, in terms of the anti-Semitism that's been out there, it is horrible. 1 in 4 Jewish individuals deal with anti-Semitism. It's the highest right now, especially in the States. It's the highest religion that's being persecuted, but with that anti-hate view. But also, you cannot deny the fact that the anti-Islamic belief is growing rapidly, just because of this whole situation as well, and due to the history of the country. So instead of just being against one and trying to pit the two against the other, why can't we just go ahead and say we have to be against both? Because we have to be against that. Because again, the Palestinian people are being attacked. And it is growing. That growing anti-Islamic beliefs is growing. Hence the reason you had what happened in Vermont, where that guy just drove up and shot those 3 college students just for being Palestinian, and that is wrong. And we should all be against that. And that is the same thing that the Jewish people are having to deal with. So we should be empathetic towards both and understand, hey, look, we have to tamper down this and go against both the anti-Semitism, which is there and constantly growing, and the anti-Islamic belief that is there, that is constantly growing. We got to be against both, and we cannot keep pitting the two against each other. Then in terms of the whole, the situation that Mark was talking about, no, it is okay. And this is something that we have to get away from. And I know Shaq laughed about it, and I know Shaq was being jovial and everything else. But no, we have to get away from, we cannot criticize what the Israeli government is doing, because if you do, then you're against Israel. And then if you disagree with what Netanyahu is doing, then you're not really Jew. No, I'm sorry. The Jewish people are not monolithic. The Jewish people can have different beliefs and see different things, just as all Black people are going to see things differently, just as all white people are going to see things differently. Just as we can criticize our government, we should appreciate the freedoms and push the fact that, yes, if you want improvements in your society, it should be okay and you should be allowed to critique and criticize and search for that goal. That we're looking for.
Good luck.
So again, in terms of what's going on in Palestine, that is the problem that the Palestinian people are having to deal with. They cannot be critical of their government, and if they are killed. That is something that we cannot have.
You are so
again,
full of
you
absolute.
can
made
sit
your point.
here and
Let's
say I'm
respond
full
to
of it. Then okay,
Well, let's
Shaq,
respond to
then
it.
you are full of being against
let's
child
respond to it.
abuse. You are
Okay,
full of
right.
being against child slavery.
yeah.
So you are
Can
full
we,
of it.
can we respond, or are you just going to keep going?
No, I don't care what you have to say because you said I'm
Okay,
full
well,
of trying to be
okay,
against
okay,
you,
okay.
but
That's
you're
fine. That's
full
fine.
of being against all the things that you're
If
against.
that's the case, no. If that's the case, out of respect for the hosts, if we can't respond, Sasha and I will just leave.
Cool.
No, but
And-
hold on a second.
and-
Hold on a
and-
second. Hold on a second, Shaquille and Sasha.
If
Because I
you
was
want to
going to
play
bring up
that
some.
card,
Hold on
go
a
for it.
second. Because I was
So
going to bring up something.
are we
Hold
allowed
on
to
a
respond
second.
to Toby or not?
If
You
you
can
want
respond,
to
but I
play
was
that-
actually going to bring up
if you
something
want
to
to play
what
the
Jacoby
victim
said.
card,
And
do
everything
it.
else
Do
is
it,
bullshit.
Jack.
Mark,
Play the
don't
victim,
change-
Shaq.
Don't change
Play
the
the
subject.
victim
I'm
like
not
you're doing
playing-
right
I'm not
now.
playing
Either
the
It's not
victim.
damn to the
respond.
subject.
I'm not
It's the
playing the
same
victim at all.
subject.
I'm not playing the victim. You said
You're
you
playing
don't
the victim.
care. You don't
Playing
care
the
what my response
victim.
is. That's what you said.
Playing
so
the victim. It's okay, Shaq. It's okay.
If that's
Play the
the
victim
case,
all
out
you
of
want.
respect for the network,
Play the victim
should
all you
Sasha
want.
and I
Shaq.
then just leave and just
Shaq,
let you
play
just
the
go
whiny victim like you like to
Wait,
do.
wait a minute, Shaquille. There's 12,000 other people watching the show.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Somebody who doesn't care what you're saying, it really doesn't matter because there's.
Thank you.
Okay, so can Sasha and I respond?
Interested. There's 11,000 people watching right now who may be interested in what you have to say.
Well, I hope, bloody hope so. I can tell you this.
Nick, I can
tell
do
you this.
it. That's
Of
my
the
point.
12
But Jack wants to
of
play
the
the
12
victim and
of the 12,000
Shaq.
people, of the
there's
12,000
tons of
people that
listeners that might be interested.
yeah,
This
well,
is like
I
a
imagine
year.
so, and I dare say that of the 12,000 people that are watching the show, the 11,000 that you mentioned would be interested in watching me and hearing what I've got to say.
That's right.
Versus
because you're
maybe 1,000 that actually give a shit about what you're
I don't care.
But let's just get back to the absolute hypocrisy.
Yes, they want to watch me. I am Shaquille Latimer.
Listen, Shatovi, I'm wondering, why don't you get your own show? Just you yourself. You don't need anybody else. And you talk for an hour and you'll enjoy yourself. You love your voice. You love your look, the way you look and so on. And just enjoy yourself and stop coming here to bother normal people. I think if you will leave here, there will be not 12,000. There will be 20,000. I am
Sasha,
Hold on a
pretty
second.
10,000
Hold
people
on a
are not
second.
watching
Hold on a
once
second.
they
We're
see
not going
your
down
face.
personal attacks.
They
Hold on a
leave.
second.
You don't want
Hold
to
on a second.
see
We're
it
not
anymore.
Shaquille
Okay?
and Sasha, Toby as well. We're not going down personal attacks and everything. But one of the things I
Thank
was going
you.
to ask, and all
Hey,
of
I'm going to go
this-
through
hold
personal
on,
attacks. I'm
hold
still waiting to
on a
respond.
second.
I'm
Hold
still
on a second.
still waiting to
Hold
respond to Toby's nonsense. I've been very patiently waiting to respond to his rubbish.
let the
over
host
there.
control the show, please.
Well.
Well,
If we don't want
you
to lose
say-
control of the show, Toby, what they
Let
should
the
do.
host control the show, please.
Yes.
The
but- and one of
the best way of
hold
not
on-
losing
hold
control
on
of the
a
show is
second.
just to get rid of you because you're an
Let the
absolute
show.
show.
Let the
And-
host.
and
Hold
that's
on a
like-
second.
and that's
Hold
like
on a
previously.
second. Hold on.
Can I respond? Can I just respond? Right.
Go
The
ahead and
host is
respond.
trying to tell us something.
As I've said previously,
Mark, you can utilize the mute button on any one of us. I am more than welcome.
Yeah,
to push that
how
button if you'd
weak.
like.
What a
Same
weak
thing,
nut
Nick. If
coward
you want to
are.
push mute on me, I am good with that.
Yeah,
I'm
what
sure
a-
the
what
other
a
two
weak,
should be okay
gutted,
and willing
prissy
to
little
accept
bitch
that
you
as well.
are, Jacoby.
So go ahead, host. Mark, you're the host. Please take
Yes.
it away.
And what I was going to ask, and this is actually coming back even to Sasha and everything.
So
And
you're
it was
going
something-
to ask the question. You're not going to let me respond. After he's
I think that you will. If you let me ask the question, your response will probably involve the question I'm
I don't want to
asking.
respond to you. I want to respond to Jacoby's nonsense.
Mark, you're the host. Take it away. You have the floor.
Thank you. And what I was asking, and this is coming back to other, because I think one of you had mentioned this whole notion of policing the world and everything along those lines and everything. So apparently Russia, an area that Sasha knows quite well. Hold on a second. It's still the same
Totally
subject.
changing the subject. Obviously, Mark, you know that what
It's
I'm
not
going to say
it's the same.
is going to
If you will
absolutely
let me ask the
annihilate the
question-
progressive position. So
When
now
you
you're
let me ask the question,
on to
then
something
you will
else.
see how the questions are tied together. Because we were talking about and even in this conversation, we were talking about people's perceptions and whether people should be advocating against things that are going on in other places. And what Russia has done, which I did not get to in the news story that I was getting ready to get to, and we've only got about 15 minutes left, is that Russia has banned LGBTQ activism as extremists. So there in Russia, they are claiming that kind of activism in their Supreme Court is extremist and everything. So we are arguing about the extremist nature of what protesters are doing here in the United States, even when they're protesting for the Palestinian cause, because there are a number of people that are finding causes that are related.
Let's get back to what's hanging in the air, because this is a complete change of subject, right? But no, we're talking about Israel and Palestine, and I love this. I love this notion of Jatovi's that, well, you know, just because you're standing for one doesn't mean you can't stand for the other, you know, et cetera, right? This sort of nonsense. Now, it's interesting because when I called Jatovi, just shush for a second.
I'll give You're arguing against yourself because that's not what I said.
I will give you plenty of opportunity to respond. Okay? I'll give you plenty of opportunity. When I said on multiple occasions that Jatovi is a intellectual and moral coward, because when October 7 first occurred, our first show after it, he wasn't prepared to take a position. He had to wait, just like Mark, you had to wait when 4 or 5 black police officers killed a black man, and I said, is it racist or not? And you had to wait until the progressives came out with a statement before you jump behind it. Okay, I am going to say exactly the same thing. If you guys on this progressive left want to sit there and say Black Lives Matter, and it's not acceptable for anybody to say, well, all lives matter, white lives matter, you know, colored people's lives matter, blue lives matter, and you say, well, that's taking away from the focus of the actual issue which is at hand at the moment. The issue at the moment is not about everyone else's lives matter. It's only about Black Lives Matter right now, as Ice-T says in his song. If that's the position you're going to have, how can you now sit here and say, well, yeah, but Jewish lives matter, but so too you know, Muslim lives? And what I find most fascinating is that Jatovi and Mark are not Muslim, and are trying to make the argument that somehow trying to stand up for and call out the anti-Semitic behavior, to call out the horrific way in which Jewish people have been treated in Western society is somehow Islamophobic, or is somehow, you know, anti-Muslim.
Nobody
Here
said
I
that.
am coming from a Muslim family.
Nobody said that whatsoever.
Let me finish. Do you think that I somehow hate Muslims? I hate my own family. Is that the idea? Right? And this is the same sort of nonsense when Jatovi sits there and says everybody within a community, they're not monolithic. Everybody within the community has a right to express a viewpoint. And, you know, they may have differing views on everything because they're not monolithic. But yet you guys support ideas like Larry Elder is the black face of white supremacy. You guys support the ideas that if it's a black person that doesn't happen to adhere to your political ideology, somehow they're a traitor to their own race. So if
Shaquille, first off,
and it's been your
stop the bullshit, because I never said Larry Elder was the face of nobody ever said that on this network.
No, let me finish. You'll have plenty of opportunity to respond. Let me just finish. If that is your view, that's fine. That's your view. You can hold that view. You can have that view. That's no problems. But spare us the lecture when you guys are that hypocritical about things. Spare us the lecture when it doesn't affect you guys directly. You want to come up with all these things about, free speech. Everybody has a right to express things. Spare me the lecture on that when you guys have conducted yourselves the way that you have. And I will say to you, here we've got Sasha. Sasha and I are friends. I am friends with you, Mark. I don't know whether I'm friends with Jatovi or not, but I'm friends with certainly with you, Mark, and I'm certainly friends with Sasha. Okay, we enjoy chess. We enjoy trading, talking about trading ideas. We enjoy all sorts of different things. I've met Sasha's family. We get along very, very well. Okay, now why exactly would I sit there and say, okay, well, I'm going to support this and I'm not going to support that? You guys want to sit there and go, oh, well, there's a black and white issue here. This is right. This is wrong. Why would you do that? because you won't stand up for people that are really downtrodden. You won't stand up for minorities.
Are we done?
You guys are the biggest lot of hypocrites. And
Are we at a point where we can respond yet?
Yes, absolutely. I'll just finish this one thing. Yet when Sasha
One
and I
thing
sit
goes on
here
a filibuster.
in person or online, Sasha and I disagree on so many issues. Sasha has had a crack at me about being a Trump supporter.
I don't know what
I'm
this
not
is.
a Trump supporter, but that's what he thinks because I'm not anti-Trump like he is. Sasha and I have disagreed sharply on political issues, on religious issues, on all sorts of things. But yet we're friends. But with you guys, I know it has to be an attack. Now, why do you think that is? Maybe it's because of your own
Shaquille, hold on a
politics.
second. Shaquille, hold on a second.
And maybe
Hold on a
it's because
second.
of your own
Mark,
moral
Mark,
and political.
hold on.
Mark,
You've had your filibuster and everything, Shaquille. First off, that was a bunch of bullshit, and I'm just gonna put it black
Yes.
on it and everything.
Dear
Because first
Lord.
off, hold on, because first off, I never called you the face of white supremacy. I never said,
said you
Larry
did.
Elder
I never said you did.
didn't have the right
I
to
never
say
said
what
you
he
did.
said.
But
and
Jacoby
everything along those lines.
said,
I
how
don't
many
have to
shows
agree.
did
Hold on
Jacoby
a
said
second.
that I'm
I don't have
pushing
to
white
agree with
Said
somebody.
we had plenty of time to respond,
I
Shaq.
don't have to agree with somebody to see that I don't like their viewpoints and everything, but I have read and I will continue to read some of the works of Thomas Sowell. You don't know my activism background. You don't know what I've done here in this area, in the area of housing or a number of other things. So you can't make that statement. For another thing, for all you know, because I've never talked about my religious background other than the fact to say that I'm not active in the church and all in that space, and I consider myself more spiritual than that. So for all you know, I could be Muslim and everything in that nature. I am not, and I will say that right now.
Well,
but for all you know, I could be and everything. Because a lot of times religions are not.
My friend. Assalamu alaikum, Mark. My Muslim.
Hey, like I said, I can respond back to that as well because I do have some very dear friends that are Muslim. As a matter of fact, I'll see one in about an hour after I do Sasha's show and go to Haytak because literally he's going to be over there selling the oils at a place near my job and all in that space. I imagine he's going to be posted up as soon as I get off the bus and all along those lines. And I'll probably say hello. He'll probably greet me the way that you just greeted me as well and everything. So, like I said, I'm just saying that to make these stereotypes, because you make a lot of stereotypes as well, because you don't know what I was doing during Occupy or what I did during the 70s or the 80s or the 90s or a number of other things as well. So don't even go down that path with me and everything.
I know what you told
So
me. I know
now,
you told me.
let me respond to. You said we had plenty of time to respond, Shaq.
I know that
You
stuff.
said we had plenty of time to respond.
So
So
black
let
and
me
colored
respond real
experience
quick,
is monolithic,
Shaq. You
but
said
the
we had
Jewish
plenty of
experience and
time
the
to
Muslim experience
respond.
isn't.
Shaquille, let me respond too, because what Mark touched on is a lot as well. Because you keep throwing out these things, and we tell you legitimately, "Hey, look, we did not say this," but you continue down the road and keep trying to say that we said this. No, so let's start off. When you started off with Black Lives Matter, let me educate you a little bit on Black Lives Matter.
No, please
You
do.
keep hold on,
Please do.
Shaq. You said we got a lot of time to respond. You said we got a lot of time to respond, Shaq. I don't want to hear from you right now. These 10, 11,000 people that are watching want to hear the response. Shaquille, I don't care. I'm going to outtalk you either way. This is what I do for a profession. You will never be able to overtalk me. So again, you've got to listen. Shaq, you said we have plenty of time to respond. Here we go. So starting off with Black Lives Matter, let me help you understand what Black Lives Matter is. Black Lives Matter was a movement that started because of the over-policing of the Black community and how the abuses that the Black community had dealt with. So people did not realize or did not understand what Black Lives Matter was. And actually, this movement has been around for eons and decades. People want to love on Muhammad Ali now, even though he was part of that whole movement. The same movement that's going on now about Black Lives Matter and talking about the over-policing in the Black community and the abuses that the Black community dealt with. So all Black Lives Matter was a slogan. Hold on, Shaq. I haven't finished, Shaq. We don't want to hear right now. Let me finish. So the over-policing and the pointing out of that slogan, that's all that was. But then people took offense to that because all they wanted to hear was, oh, we're going to get outraged and we're going to actually mess up this movement because, oh my goodness, they're saying only Black Lives Matter, which was untrue. And then out of the depths of 4chan and the dredges of these these white nationalists and white supremacist areas came the talking point that, oh, white lives matter too. All lives matter. And therefore, that all lives matter came out of that racist kind of that racist
Was it only
background,
the white
and that was the
supremacists that
history of
felt
where
that way?
All Lives Matter came from. And then
Was it
when
only
they
the
kept
white
pushing
supremacists
All
that
Lives
felt that
Matter,
way?
hold on, Shaquille, you said
No,
I
it
had
was a
plenty of
simple
time to
question.
respond, but
It was
yet
a
you
simple
want to
question.
overtalk me. You're
It
gonna
was a
try,
simple
but it's not gonna
question.
work. You don't
It
understand.
was a
I'm not
simple
gonna sit
question.
here and let you do that. You
It
can
was a
pull out the
simple
rest of your
question.
head. You can keep on listening to what I got to
It
talk
was
about.
a
Because this is
simple
what I
question.
got to talk about in my response. I've only been talking for about 2 minutes. You had 10.
It
So
was a simple question,
again,
Jacoby.
let me
Was it only white-
finish.
was it only
Let
white
me
supremacists? You
finish.
want to
Let
answer that
me
question?
finish.
Okay,
Hey,
bullshit.
Shaq, you're not going to do it. It's not going to work. You said I had plenty of
Bullshit.
time.
No
Give me
problems.
my time. Give me my time.
But
So
you don't
again,
answer a question.
with the
You
All
don't
Lives
answer a
Matter,
question.
that's what the All Lives Matter and the histrionics behind
don't
the whole
answer
All
a
Lives
question.
Matter movement.
You
And
don't interrupt.
when the funny issue was, All Lives Matter never stood up in any of the occasions where Black Lives Matter were. No, All Lives Matter only stood up anytime Black Lives Matter was pointing out a situation where a Black individual was abused.
Stood up and did
And
what?
then when you want to talk
Stood up and
about
did
how
what?
we had to wait
Looted
for
and
these
advocated for
debates and wait for this
Marxism.
whole progressive
Oh,
talk.
that's
No,
some
we had
standing
already
up.
spoken
That's
up about
amazing.
particular things. To get back to the Palestinian thing, you yourself, along with Sasha, keep trying to tie Hamas and the Palestinian people together. And this is why Mark and I keep trying to point out to you they are two separate individuals, two
No!
separate groups.
95% support Hamas. 95% of Palestinians support Hamas. Stop lying. Tell me no matter how much money Black Lives Matter raised last year. You tell me that if you know the subject. How much money Black Lives Matter raised last year, a year before, 2 years before? How much money they're raising? Millions of dollars. You fool!
He's talking the same way. Thank
Sasha,
you.
Sasha,
So
I
again,
think,
hey,
I think
Shaq,
you are.
again, the more
Sasha,
you
I
talk,
think you're
the longer
mistaken,
this
my friend.
takes. Let
Sasha, I
me
think you're mistaken
finish.
here.
The longer
You
you talk, the
clearly
longer
have not
this
allowed
takes.
yourself
Let
to
me
be adequately
finish. The
educated by
longer you
Jacoby.
talk, the longer
So
this
you,
is gonna
if you just
take.
sit there, he
I
will
don't know if you
impart
want to
to
hear
you
what
some more
what
of
I'm
his
saying.
amazing
Because it's
wisdom.
obvious you don't want to hear what I gotta say. So
No,
again,
because we're
getting
not
back to
listening
the
to your
Palestinian
bullshit, mate.
people and what's going on in Israel.
Jacoby, listen, you think that your screens raise ratings of this program? I don't think so. It's enough. All you're saying is garbage 100%.
I want to finish this point so then you can talk.
Okay, keep going.
Let me finish
Okay.
the point.
Oh, your rating is going higher. Oh, there are already 50,000 people came to listen to Jacoby. Oh, it's 100,000 people. Jacoby, keep going. Let's do it.
Over to you.
Great job.
Point. Oh, there we go. So what I'm saying is, when we get back to the protest against what's going on in Israel or against what's happening between Israel and Palestine, because Hamas did a travesty. Hamas was a terrorist organization.
Jacoby, you're not qualified to talk about this. You have zero knowledge, okay? So this is all noise. Everything what's coming from your mouth is nothing but noise.
I have younger lungs. You will not be able to outdo me.
He's like a wind-up.
Let me finish my point. So
there's no point. 250,000 people listening.
There is a point. But you want to overtalk. The thing is, again, what's going on in Palestine? What happened is that Hamas attacked the Israel. That happened. Hamas is a terrorist organization. We can all agree to that. We can all condemn what they did. But when people have reservations and protest those things that are going on, it doesn't mean that they're standing up for Hamas. It means that they're trying to stand up for the people of Palestine, who are the ones being abused.
Listen, enough of this
noise. Finish my point.
Garbage. Everything you're saying.
You will not be able to. You will come to
garbage. Stop lying already.
I know how to talk longer than you can. So again,
doesn't matter.
And then you can talk.
It's time. My show starts now.
It doesn't matter. We're going to end the show this way. This is what we're going to do. Or you can respond.
You can have the next hour.
Let me finish, and then you can talk.
Okay, you finish in half an hour, okay?
Cool. It doesn't. There we go. Cool. So now I can finish my point. So, Mark, all I'm trying to point out to them, because they ran and wanted to overtalk, is the fact that when people protest, and this is how you tied what's going on in Russia when they put up that ban, which was a great connection. When people are trying to stand up for others that are being abused, that are being attacked for absolutely no reason, it's okay to protest, and we should support that, because a lot of people, and this is why, like Ali, when he stood up and protested and did his activism stuff. Same thing with MLK. People who have a platform should use that platform to give voice to those who don't have a voice and cannot stand up. And those protests
along those same lines and everything, just really quickly, that's one of the points I was going to bring up, because even the Gaza conflict is not just like you pointed out about Black Lives Matter, the Gaza conflict is not new either, because definitely Malcolm X went there and made some protests around what was going on in Gaza in the early 60s. I believe it was like 1965 or 1964. It was before his death. So he was actually arguing for the two-state solution, and he was also arguing about a number of other things, and he went there and visited the country and all along those lines. And as I've said on this show, and I'll say it again, he also changed his views to some degree about the nature of European Americans, because when he went there, he noticed that there were some people that were fairer skinned than he was expecting, because he had done that whole demonization. And I think that that's some of what's going on here, is we have demonization going on, demonization of a people and everything. And he had done the demonization of the white race and everything. And then when he went there to Mecca, he was like, wait a minute, there's some people that are a little bit fairer skinned than I am.
Exactly. And that's the thing. And that's where, I mean, hatred is born out of ignorance. And if you don't know something, so if you're afraid of going down a dark alley, even though at the end of that dark alley, there could be a pot of gold, but if you don't know anything about it, then you're going to be scared of it. You're going to come up with different fears around it. And that's what happens. That's what happens with, a lot of the anti-Semitism, a lot of the racism, and so on and so forth. Shaq, can I finish again? I gotta finish my point, and then you can talk. It's the same thing that what Mark and I were talking back and forth.
Let me just make my
statement. I'm saying what I'm saying. Let me finish my point, and then you can
talk. You've been going for fucking 15 minutes, mate. Shut up. You
jumped out, and then while Mark and I were talking, jump in right in the middle while I'm saying something.
If you give me 10 seconds, I'm gone.
Let me say this one thing, and then you can have the floor.
If you give me 10 seconds, I'm gone.
Let me say this one thing, and then you can have the floor. Let me say this one thing, and then you can have the floor. Okay.
I don't need the floor.
Let me say this one thing, and then you can have the floor.
Just give me 10 seconds.
Let me say this one thing, and then you can have the floor. Why can't you be patient? Let me say this thing.
I've been patient. I hung back for 5 minutes.
You just came in and interrupted what I was saying.
Shut up for a moment.
No, you please let me finish what I'm saying, and then you can have the floor. Let me finish what I'm saying, and then you can have the floor. So again, ignorance is born out of that whole, and this is where a lot of the racism and a lot of the anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim comes out of. And then this is why a lot of those protests come about, because it's about educating people. And hey, look, we need to wake up. We need to see what's happening. And these people are being abused. And again, what's going on with Russia, where they banned
Can I go yet? Can I go yet? Because I've got another show to go to. Can I have one
sentence? It all ties together, because it's the fact that these individuals that are protesting are trying to bring an education and understanding that there is a problem. And so these are things that we got to reach out and understand and kind of look at, and trying to become educated on those things, rather than shouting them down and calling them, well, they're just wanting you to. That's not true. So Shaq,
you want to respond?
Yes. If hatred is born of ignorance, Jatovi, I think the two other people on this show, other than myself, would be the most ignorant people out there. Okay. And the fact that you cannot ever listen and experience and understand anyone else's viewpoint but your own speaks volumes. But that's okay, Jatovi. We all know who has the most followers, right? It's not you. Have a good one.
Okay. So he came on just to spout off something ridiculous like that. It doesn't
Yeah, he
matter
came
to
on to
me.
say that and everything, and I can say we're going to end the show, but
Yeah.
all along those lines. But while he might be known in Australia, and I'm not saying that he's not known, and even internationally, I
Mark.
think that you play, I think that you
Mark, it doesn't
comment
even-
on a place that's got at least a couple of million viewers.
It doesn't even matter about, you know, the who's got more followers or this and that. That's not the important piece here.
Right.
The important piece is understanding and trying to connect with others. His frustration and Sasha's frustration, it doesn't matter to me that they get so frustrated with me when I'm not going to let them domineer and dominate the conversation over me or yell at me. I don't care about that. And I don't care to hear and that's why I told him, I don't care to hear what he had to say, because the only thing he wanted to say was a personal attack. That's not important. People in Palestine are dying. People in Israel are dying. People in Ukraine are dying. Their hatred and personal attacks against me doesn't matter. So, you know, all the protest, this is why, getting back to hatred is born out of ignorance. And well, a lot of hatred is born out of ignorance.
Yeah,
There's other hatred out there. I'm not trying to say that's 100% thing.
Doing
It's just
good
one of those
yourself.
things. We need to have empathy. We need to work together. We need to push to be together, and instead of just being hateful towards somebody or not understanding why, you know, how some are upset at even there was I don't know, Mark, did you bring this up on the show at the beginning? I was late coming to it. I know you're on the other call trying to set up that show as well, and we're about to close this one.
Yeah.
But,
Hold on just one second, Marvin.
But there was I don't know if you brought it up, but there was a report that Israel may have known about the attack coming.
That's where the whole thing came up from. That's where the whole show went and everything, because I was bringing up the fact of that, and they were basically making the argument that if they knew, why did it matter, and all in that space. But that's actually what I used to start the show with the fact of the New York Times saying that they might have known a year ago. So that's really the way that conversation was framed. But their argument was somewhat of the fact that if they knew, what should they have done with it? And they were basically defending Israel and all in that. Because my argument was that if you know, then you can act on it. And they might have known a year ago and everything. So that was my argument.
Yeah, I mean, if you know you're going to get sick, you know you don't go to this place that has a whole bunch of sick people. You know you're going to get sick if you go there, so you avoid it. So you can take precautionary measures. And this is why again, when you pointed out that not all people of Israel and not all the Jewish people were on board with Netanyahu, it's very true. And it's okay to be critical of the government of Israel and still be supportive of the Jewish people, the Jewish state, and Israel. It's the same thing in the US. You can be critical of the government here and still be pro-American and pro-support of all Americans. It's just, if we're trying to improve something, being critical of it is one of the best ways to move towards that improvement. You've got to be able to look at and be honest about the flaws to be able to fix and grow and be prepared for the future. If you can't sit there and if everybody here said the American government is great, then we're going to be taken for fools easily.
No, exactly. I agree with you on that. And I know we're going to wind down. The other thing that I was trying to bring up that I didn't get to and everything is that they keep bringing up the dancing in the streets and the people that are saying from the river to the sea and everything. But I think that this in my opinion, are the minority view, even in the protest movement and everything. So I think that they keep trying to show that and highlight what I consider to be the minority view, even in those that are protesting against the war, whether it's the war in Israel or the Ukrainian war or a number of other things. But you can't. But if you see somebody that is doing something to an extreme, it is easy to point to that person that is doing the extreme and all along those lines. It even comes down to Black Lives Matter, where they you kill. We're talking about the looting and all in that space. I do not think that, and this is my personal opinion, that the majority of the people that were involved in Black Lives Matter were the part of the looting crowd. I also know there's a criminal element in there, and if you see an opportunity and you're a criminal, you're going to take that opportunity and you're going to use that opportunity to take advantage and to do the crime that you're going to commit in the first place, because it was a diversion tactic. And I think that there are a lot of diversion tactics out there, even in some of these political conversations as well. So that's where I get frustrated, is when people take the extreme or a diversion and don't actually pay attention to the mass of the people. Because even and I'd have to see, because you brought it up a couple times, if you are being polled and you're being polled by folks that you don't trust, whether it's Israel or Hamas, then you're probably going to give that answer that is going to satisfy what they want you to say, hence the 95% and all along those lines. But that's just my quick thoughts and everything.
But you're spot on, though, Mark, and that's a balanced viewpoint.
Right.
I mean, and to argue that what this group does is pure as gold is a very extremist viewpoint. But talking to somebody with that extremist viewpoint, which both Shaq and Sasha do have, admittedly, it's hard to get them to understand the balanced viewpoint of the fact that, again, there are mistakes that happen. It's okay to look at those mistakes and understand and grow from those mistakes. And I honestly, there was I think there was another article that I was reading. I forgot where it was from, where they were talking about, well, they asked some people in the IDF, and the IDF kept trying to say, yes, we're trying our best to make sure the Palestinian people, and they questioned, or the IDF went back and said, yeah, but we must make sure that we get and kill all of Hamas. And then the person asking the questions, or the interviewer, said, hey, do you think that your actions are creating more anti-Israeli hate in Gaza? Because you are moving, you just told millions to move, millions in a condensed area to move from their homes and move south. Now you're ready to bomb the south. Now you're telling them to go where? If you're telling them to go north, 40 to 60% is all demolished.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still people being shot and killed. So you're telling them, let's go back to this war zone that I told you to leave out of, so I can bomb the area that actually has. And now the weather is changing.
Mm-hmm. How
are they going to take care of themselves? So you're shifting, you're telling, the IDF is shifting people back and forth. There has, and I don't know it. I'm not a military expert, but I've listened to some, and they've said there has to be a better way. And I think, when Shaq brought in the idea that, Israel, the American people can do it, but on 9/11, no, we got in trouble for doing it.
Got in trouble on doing it, and then eventually on a 9/11, we targeted the individuals we were going after, whether it was Saddam or whether it was bin Laden or a number of others. So we actually went and did selective targeting, where we were targeting the folks that are the actual instigators and the architects of those attacks, or the perceived architects, and all along those lines. And as a person that has a cousin that was involved in the military, I think he had made it up at that time to colonel, or maybe he was even a lieutenant colonel at that time, and everything, that I do know that they switched their focus at some point, and it was going away from what you just said, which is that attack where we were bombing a lot of folks and getting in trouble for that, to going after a specific target.
Exactly. And that's what I think, that, again, that extremism wants, let's blow up everything, because that's what Sasha's already said. Sasha's already said, yeah, they should, all Hamas and all Palestinians are same. And that's an extremist, incorrect view. And that honestly is the same view that got, and I hate to say it this way, but that is the same extremist view that causes a lot of the destruction in the first place.
Right.
And that's what we cannot have. And those extremist views dominating the conversation, that all these people are evil, let me demonize them and let me kill them all. That is genocide. That is terrorism within itself.
Yeah.
So when you have that extremist viewpoint, you got to come out of that. That is not reality, and that shouldn't be where you're talking from. That is that ignorance, and that is that hatred. So, and like I said, you having that balanced viewpoint of, I mean, you can care for the Palestinian people and you can care for the Israeli people.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Nothing
can
wrong
care
at
for
all,
the
and that's what I
grandchildren.
think more people should have, even some of our leaders and
Yeah.
everything. But on that note, we're going to get on
Yeah, yeah.
out of here. I know that we got the Ukraine Russia show, and I've actually got to get to Haiti because speaking of people that have a different viewpoint, we've actually got a Lama, a Buddhist minister, that will be having a conversation with, I think, another Buddhist minister at the center later on this afternoon. So Lama Rod Owens, who had been there before, will be making a return trip, and I forgot the lady's name, but it'll be a conversation that'll be involved in Buddhism, and that is a whole different religion and everything. So it'll be interesting to see what they've got to say about a number of issues and all in that space. So I've got to get ready to get over there since that is, I think it's 6 or 7, but they'll be there till like 9 this evening and everything. But get ready to get on out of here and get to that. And of course, we'll have other Pod TV shows, and some of them might be done from that location since I'll be moving locations and all. But it's always good having a conversation, even when folks are trying to out yell us and all in that. Good conversation, and we'll be back on Monday with more conversations on World Edition. I did see that Steve popped in, was going to do a closeout, but he was hearing all the back and forth, so he said he'd be back on Monday. So we're going to get on out of here.